This is Baja Sessions, where we explore all things Baja, from hotels, wineries, craft breweries, surf spots, and some of the top restaurants. We hear from the people that have been there or are ready to greet you with a smile when you arrive. This is the show that delivers Baja to your front door, or in this case, your podcast channel. Sit back and enjoy. This is Baja Sessions.
This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Welcome to the Baja Sessions. Yes, it's been a while since I've hosted this show, and I'm really appreciative for Mike and Ryan that have filled in over time. I've been grinding away on the answers yes, and the Baja Sessions continues to thrive and grow, and there are so many great stories out there to tell. And it prompted me to kind of reach back into my network and address book and people that I've worked with or been around in the past. And I was in a restaurant in Newport Beach, maybe it's Costa Mesa, called El Matador. Great little Mexican restaurant, been there forever. I look at the table tent, and there was a tequila special. And the brand was Abreojos, which I remember way back in the day, my good friend Kirk, who's on the line today, started that brand, and it prompted me to get him on the line. So, hey, Kirk, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Jim. It's an honor to be on here.
Dude, I was so proud to be sitting there ordering they got these great shrimp burritos over there, ordering my burrito and looking over going, whoa, they got Abreojos Tequila here. I'm going to have a margarita. So congrats on that. I know that's a tough place to get, and you got it, and things look like they're rolling for you.
Yeah, they're probably one of my better accounts. They do a great job there, and everybody loves the tequila. So I'm stoked.
Yeah. We're talking about Baja and Baja Sessions, the show. Abreojos is a name that came from Baja, and again, that's what prompted me to call you. Would you mind just kind of telling us your story about going down to Baja, maybe early on? I know you're a surfer, but let's tell our listeners what got you excited about Baja and why you were spending time down there.
Yeah, definitely. So my dad was a big windsurfer, and they always kind of went down to solo sports, and they brought me down there one time when I was like 10 years old. Mm-hmm. I think that was kind of like the initial like draw and like fascination with going down to Baja. It was just, I don't know, it was just like a whole nother world down there. And that, I don't know, my mom wasn't very fond of Mexico. So it was kind of like almost like a little bit of a taboo thing that kind of drew me in as well. But
you and Dad sneaking away to go to Mexico. Mom didn't want you to.
Exactly. So, but I don't know. I've just over the years have come to really like love just like the people are always so nice, and it's just like almost feels like that untouched kind of aspect to it. And it's just, I don't know, the food, the culture, the people. It's amazing.
Yeah. Now, were you going down there surfing a lot back in the day? Is that what your regular routine was?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'd have a few buddies that would do a trip down to San Juanico, so I would always get drug along with them on that one. And then now they just did my first solo trip, actually probably like 8 months ago. So that was kind of fun. That was exciting, and it was about 8 hours down. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I started surfing in Mexico, and granted I'm a bit older than you, this was the mid-'80s, 87 to be exact, we'd cross the border in Tijuana and we'd hit Baja Malibu, which is super close to the border, have a good time. Then the next trip's like, oh, let's go a little further. Let's go a little further. Let's go a little further. Nowadays it's like I go all the way to the end, man, then back up the other side. So where did you start going when you went down there surfing early on?
It was down to, was it Punta San Carlos? Mm-hmm. That was kind of like the first initial spot. And then that's kind of honestly still the draw for me, because it's a little bit more off the beaten path. It's not as popular, but I mean, the whole point I feel like going down there is just kind of get away from people and, kind of do your own thing.
Yeah. Now
that's kind of my biggest thing.
You've been going long enough where surfing wasn't really a big deal in Baja. It was mainly Americans. Now I go down there and the lineup is filled with probably more locals than Americans, or maybe we've turned to look like the locals now, but it's the lineups are pretty crowded, huh?
No, absolutely. And even like the spot where I go, there's a local fishing village, and some of the kids are starting to really get into it. And it's really cool to see them out in the lineup and kind of hoot at them. And it's just fun. It's a little bit of camaraderie that way too. And then familiar faces as well.
Yeah, it's still fun to connect with people that don't really go down there, haven't really gone down there, and they're talking about, maybe their first or second trip, and they're going to Los Gaviotos, which is it's more like an American village within its own walls and confines. The surf break's pretty good there, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly. I've gone down there a few times with a couple good group of people. So. Some friends.
Great place to go. I mean, Baja is such a wonderful place for surfing and the culture. And as we all know, you get your surf in. Then we've talked about it a lot on this show before. Is just grabbing your favorite tacos, whatever your taco stand is, and enjoying a beer on the beach and stuff like that. I mean, you can still do a lot of that up and down all the Baja coast.
Absolutely, and that's what's kind of cool, because even if you go down just to Rosarito or Ensenada, it's still, I don't know, it's still something about crossing the border, and once you're in there, it's so cool. I love that feeling.
Now, I've been going since the 80s, as I mentioned, and I don't even know how many times I've gone back and forth, hundreds of times. But what's interesting about Mexico, and maybe it's that thing about the taboo thing you said about your mom and you and your dad going, coming back home, I'm always grateful to cross the border back home for some reason. It's like, we made it, we survived. Do you feel that way?
Every time. Yeah, absolutely. And then even so, when you get to the line, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. You're going to get through in like an hour and a half, not like 7 hours.
It's almost like you feel like...
That's probably the worst thing.
Yeah, it's almost like you feel like you're getting away with something when you're down in Mexico. I think it's because you're down there having fun and you feel carefree. I suppose if we felt that every day in the United States, we wouldn't feel so taboo about coming home from Mexico. But you get down there and you just feel carefree, and like you said, the people are so gracious. I'm guessing that you probably have some friends that you've made down there, whether it be taco stands or surf spots.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's really cool because like you said, you kind of, once you get back home, you kind of like, you made it. But I feel like that has to do too, just turning off the cell phone and just kind of being completely off the grid. And that's probably the coolest part about it too.
Yeah, I'm going to want to get into your tequila and the name in a minute, but tell us about the trip you took down solo. What was the trip? Where'd you go? And how did you plan for it?
It was the usual spots, so Punta San Carlos. Usually try to get down there like off season every year, like kind of September to like end October, no time frame. And my dad couldn't go. The other buddy that I usually have go with, he couldn't. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to let somebody else stop me from doing something I really like love doing. And I just kind of went for it and kind of did the same stuff that we always kind of plan out and do. And I just booked it down there and left super early in the morning. And like, I was like really nervous at first. And I was like, what am I worried about? This is something we've done a bunch of times. And once I was like, by like, I don't know, like to Ensenada, I was like, all right, this is fine. I got this.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing experience, and just like camping on the bluff by myself and kind of doing my own thing and listening to whatever music I wanted to. And it was really cool.
Yeah.
But planning, there wasn't much planning, honestly. It was just kind of more planning for food. I get really good gas mileage, so I'm able to go down without having to stop anywhere and just kind of book it down. So
yeah, that's great. By the way, speaking of planning, another little shout out. I know we do the commercial, but Baja Bound Insurance is a must when you're crossing the border, that you have insurance for your vehicle if you're going to be driving. They do a great job. They've been doing it for a lot of years. And by the way, if you go to their website, they've got some great travel tips, where to go, places to stay, food to eat, and things like that. So I'll just throw that out there. Not necessarily as a commercial. Jeff, who owns the company, has been a great friend, big surfer. Oftentimes they take surf and dirt bike trips down there. So it's always fun to be connected with those types of people. So you mentioned camping on the bluffs. I mean, that's still, look, we were doing that years and years ago. That's still a reality going down there, that there's a lot of great places to camp and hang out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like there's some really great spots that I've been talking with people a little bit further south of where where I usually go. So I'm kind of, like you said, it's like you want to go a little bit further every time and kind of explore something different. And that's kind of like, after that last trip, I'm like, I'm going to start probably trying to do a couple other trips coming up this year. And try to go a little bit further past and find some other cool spots.
Yeah, well, you can put a few more hours and make it down to Scorpion Bay and enjoy camping on the bluffs up there and some huge right-handers.
Right. I know the only thing that kind of steers me away from San Juanico is just the crowd. Like if I'm going to drive that far, I think I want to try to like get a little bit more off the beaten path.
Yeah.
At least for me. I mean, that's kind of just trying to get away from the hustle and bustle of like being in the Southern California area and surfing with 1,000 people. So
yeah, sure. Well, why don't you talk a little bit about your tequila, because I believe that it was your love for Baja and Mexico that you got involved with tequila and you named your brand after a surf spot. So we'd love to have you tell that story for our listeners that don't know the story, and let's get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely. No, so the name Abreojos, so that's down Punta Abreojos. It was just, I don't know. It was something that kind of popped out to me, and it felt like it would be a great name and brand for tequila, just because of it has everything to do with tequila and the culture of just like being open and kind of experiencing new things. And that's kind of the direction that I took it. And I feel like it's just something that's a part of more than just like a name. It's just, there's more to it.
Mm-hmm. So the name is Abreojos, right? Open eyes?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, love it.
And originally that was I was trying to base it more on the area down there. But then I kind of changed directions a little bit and started kind of rebranding a little bit. And that's kind of when we started making it more about the meaning and kind of what life experiences in that kind of aspect.
So you decide to launch, you find a name, you decide to launch a tequila, you look at the values that it represents. And by the way, you've got a cool logo on there. For the listeners, can you describe what that logo looks like?
Yeah, so what I did, I most of the tequilas have an agave plant, and they kind of do their own rendition on it. So I was trying to be a little bit different. There's a ton of scorpions in the agave fields. So we took a scorpion and then kind of almost like shaped the legs and the tail to mimic an eye and eyelashes to kind of play off the name a little bit. It definitely really catches your eye too. No pun intended.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's awesome. So you got a brand, you got a name. Now we got to find where we're going to get this tequila made and how you get it to the U.S. and the struggles of creating a business. What was that like for all you? I mean, here I am envisioning this Baja surfer going, hey, I want to start a tequila, and the big world ahead of that.
I mean, that goes way back. I mean, brings back some really good memories. Originally you're the one that kind of shoved me down the whole tequila world and really guided and mentored me to create like a good foundation. And it's really an interesting world, and it's really fun. I feel like what really drew me in was just, you almost feel like you're a part of a really small group, and you're like in the middle of it. And that was really something that kind of drew me in, more than anything as well. But yeah, it's really difficult kind of trying to get connected with somebody down there. And then from there, it's like trying to have that faith and trust that everything will get done and handled, and then you'll be able to get your product up into the States. And the scariest thing, at least for me, was just money up front and before you even have any product. And then up here, that's kind of the challenge too, is up here, everything's like you get paid within 30 to 60 days. So you're kind of like, you're definitely juggling a balance of cash flow and nerves all at the same time.
and the peso versus the US dollar, and wiring money and hoping that somebody gets it.
Absolutely. And I've had that issue, I think early on. It was like, they gave me all the routing numbers and the SWIFT codes, and I had it correct. And then like a week goes by and they're like, oh,